This is Gilbert Gottfried, and I'm here with my co-host Frank Santopadre, and this is another episode of Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions. Now, as far as my own personal obsession, I am, if anyone, I'm looking for Papillon Susu. Papillon Susu. Now,
it's not a dish.
Yeah. Try the Papillon Susu
it's
with brown rice.
French to Vietnamese.
Papillon Susu, in case you don't know the name, is the girl who said the famous line, "Me so horny, me so horny, me love you long time, me so horny, me love you long time, oh, me so horny, me do anything, me so horny." Papillon Susu, if you're listening to this podcast, or if there's someone out there who knows Papillon, me so horny.
Well, you didn't mention the movie.
Full Metal Jacket. And the funny thing is, I'll bet, more people know the line, "me so horny," than Full Metal Jacket.
Or have seen the film.
Yeah. And so if anyone out there...
We don't know if she's still acting. We found on IMDb she has 3 credits. She was in A View to a Kill, the Bond movie, I think. And I think her last acting credit listed is 92.
Yeah.
So we don't know if she's even in the business.
So basically she's got my agent.
These are the kind of requests he comes to me with. Sitting in the Friars Club interviewing Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter, and Gilbert says, "Hey, I know who we should get for the show."
Yes, and this was, and Frank basically said, "No, this is a show about old Hollywood, not girls who you jerked off to after having watched the movie. That would be too long a list."
And we don't even know if she speaks English. But we'd love to have her on the show. So Papillon Susu, if you're still out there, or if any of our listeners know how to find her, give us a shout.
Yes.
You know where to find us, on Facebook, on Twitter.
Cause me so horny.
You did that impression. You sounded like Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Okay, so who goes first?
You go first.
Okay. Speaking of offensive Asian characters.
I was just going to say, you got a natural segue there.
And the funny thing is like probably the majority of white actors playing Asians was not offensive.
Well, it wasn't a big deal. No, Paul Mooney in the Good Earth.
Exactly.
They would cast white actors, Caucasian
and
actors.
All of the Charlie Chan parts.
Right.
Wait a second, I can do it. Oh, Jesus. Roland Winter.
Right.
Sidney Toler.
Good.
And
the most famous one.
The most famous one, he was like Swedish. He was the doctor in Werewolf of London.
Warner Oland?
Warner Oland.
There you go.
Warner Oland. Warner Oland was the first one. And then he was replaced by Sidney Toler.
Right.
And then it was Roland Winter.
Right.
Who I once heard a rumor was Jewish, but he really wasn't.
Really? That's so disappointing.
So now the only Asian Jew would be Dr. No.
That's right. Joseph Weissman. Right, which is, again, a Caucasian actor playing...
And
Louise Rainier, by the way, won an Oscar for playing an Asian character in The Good Earth.
And I heard that...
Commonplace.
When those Charlie Chan movies were in the theaters, they were very popular among Chinese audiences.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And it would make perfect sense. Right. It's like you're showing like this Chinese genius who's solving crime, and you're going, "Oh, what an offensive character."
Right. Well, it was normal for the time.
Yeah.
And you see it still in the 60s, and it's starting to get...
Yes.
It's starting, Mickey Rooney, we just talked about in Breakfast at Tiffany's. That's an over-the-top.
Yes.
Offensive.
Yeah. And, of course, Jerry Lewis.
Oh, Jerry. In which one? The Geisha Boy or...
Geisha Boy, and then he revised it in... Hardly Working.
where he's the Benny Hanna
Oh,
chef?
yes.
That's painful to watch.
And I heard that George Takei said one of his only regrets in his career was a Jerry Lewis movie that he worked on. So
God.
it must have been one of those where he's in the background
Yeah.
and Jerry Lewis is the main.
Well, there's Smorgasbord and Hardly Working.
Oh,
those
yes.
last two regrettable Lewis pictures. A lot of, I think of Sellers in Murder by Death,
Oh, yes.
playing sort of
Yeah,
a
he
Charlie
was still
Chan
playing.
knockoff. And then his last film, sadly, The Fiendish Plot of Dr. Fu Manchu.
With Sid Caesar.
Yeah, right after his triumph in being there. But by then, you start to see it becoming politically incorrect.
Oh, yeah. But you know what's very weird that I've noticed in movies is the people who've taken over for Asians as far as being, hey, they look funny, they sound funny, is people from India.
Right, that's interesting.
It used to be like if you'd have Asians pop up, they look funny, they sound funny.
Right.
And so it used to be, Asians would show up, go, oh, and it's
comic
so funny.
relief.
And now it's replaced with
That's right.
And it's like, hey, those people from India sure are.
Well, remember we had
funny.
Mike Reese on the show from The Simpsons, and when they were talking about how Azaria was first going to play Apu.
Oh, yes.
The deli owner and the Quickie Mart owner in
Yes.
Springfield. He said, "Dude, I'm not going to do it anything but a Middle Eastern guy or a Pakistani guy
Yeah.
or an Indian guy." But that's what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's the last stereotype that Hollywood is getting away
Oh,
with.
yes.
But there's your segue.
Oh, okay.
A white actor playing Asian. Because you forgot the movie.
Okay. This movie, I haven't seen it for years, but I remember liking it when I first saw it. So
I've never seen it.
So I can't swear to you how I would like it now. But it was directed by George Pal, who did Time Machine
Yeah.
and War of the Worlds.
He was a fantasist. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it stars, of all people, Tony Randall. Mm-hmm. And it's called The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau.
That's the one.
It's a very peculiar film where Tony Randall plays a Chinese man who shows up with like a little fishbowl into a Western town.
Yeah, corrupt Western town. Yeah.
And he shows up with a little fishbowl with a little fish in it. And he claims to have a big circus. And the makeup was done by William Tuttle.
Yeah, we did a little research on it because you usually don't tell me your film, but this week you did. And there's a little research on it, and he won an honorary Oscar, William Tuttle, for the makeup.
And William Tuttle also did the makeup for the Time Machine.
Oh, right.
And one of the Morlocks from the Time Machine does a special guest appearance.
In Seven Faces of Dr. Lau?
Yeah,
That's fun.
like kind of an inside joke.
That's fun trivia.
And okay, now here's also trivia, and I think it was William Tuttle. Now, I heard, George Hamilton
Yeah.
is known for his ridiculous tan.
Yeah.
And now, if George Hamilton really was tanning himself out in the sun all these years, he would have been dead years ago.
I'm sure.
Or his skin would be he would be needing skin grafts by now.
And he looks good, actually.
Yeah, he
I just
looks-
saw him on an
yeah.
Oprah. Where are they now?
And so what's really somebody told me, I think it was William Tuttle, devised a special makeup for George Hamilton that looks like a suntan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Well, George Hamilton be a good guest for us. He's got
probably.
He's funny. He's good in comedies. He's done everything, and I think he's got a reality show. So I think he's got something to plug.
Yeah.
Dara
He-
will put George Hamilton on the list.
And
So that's been makeup all these years, not a real tan.
I was in Howie Mandel's special. Was George? No, he wasn't in that. Robert Goulet.
Well, they're interchangeable.
Yeah, pretty much.
except Goulet's not available. Right. Don't let
But-
that get out to George Hamilton.
But I wasn't a Jenny McCarthy. Her sitcom that lived like about 3 seconds.
I'm familiar with her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And may I say, that reminds me, don't give any of your children vaccinations. For God's sake, it causes autism.
Oh, God.
I refuse to give my kids vaccinations. Both my kids have polio now, but that's not important.
Talk about a tangent.
Also, in the 7 Faces of Dr. Lau is Arthur O'Connell.
Yeah, playing the bad guy.
Oh, and Arthur O'Connell is one of those actors I always confuse with Frank Ferguson,
That's funny.
who played McDougal in Abbott and Costello Meet
Very
Frankenstein.
good. Oh, I know who you mean. Yes,
Yeah,
he is sort of Arthur O'Connell-like.
McDougal's House of Horrors.
Yes.
Yeah.
I for some reason I mix up Arthur O'Connell and Jack Albertson,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, but they
but Jack Albertson was taller.
and I think younger.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
both turn up in the Poseidon Adventure. Arthur
That's
O'Connell's
right.
the priest.
That's right.
And Jack Albertson's married to Shelley Winters. And once again, down the wormhole. Wow. Wow.
And Shelley Winters definitely a Jew,
That's right.
as was Jack Albertson.
Was Jack Albertson
Jack
Jewish?
Albertson a Jew?
Amazing. Do we have to add a
And
third
Tony
show?
Randall.
Tony Randall.
Rand-
Tony Randall's Leonard Rosenberg.
Yes.
Yeah. You're not stumping me on that one.
and Jack Klugman was Jack Klugman.
Yeah. Lots of Jews involved in The Odd Couple. And yet the man who developed it for television and hired Tony Randall and
Yes.
Jack Klugman, he's one of mine.
Yes.
Gary Marshall.
He's very weird, Gary Marshall, in that he's an Italian
Yep.
who looks
From the
and
Bronx.
acts like a Jew.
Right. Everybody thinks Penny Marshall, his
yes.
sister, and Gary Marshall is Jewish, but they're paisan.
Yeah.
So there you go. We're
And
breaking news.
I heard that Gary Marshall said in the neighborhood he grew up in was a famous Jew lived down the block from him, and that was the designer Ralph
Lifshitz.
Yeah, who
Lifshitz,
became Ralph Lauren.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think in addition to this mini episode, we have to now start doing a third mini episode
Who's
called
a
Who's a
Jew?
Jew? Now, speaking of Tony Randall,
Papillon Susu.
also Jewish.
I think she's a Vietnamese Jew.
She's half at best. Speaking of Tony Randall, I'm just going to keep plowing forward. This will be a 37-minute episode. Tony Randall has a cameo in the film I'm picking
Okay.
this week, and it's a film. This is not really an obscure film. It's a little more of a mainstream film, although I think it's one of the lesser known or lesser talked about films in Martin Scorsese's body of work. And you may know where I'm going with this.
Oh.
And one of his few out-and-out comedies. I talked about After Hours on an early show
yeah,
that we
that's
did.
the one I was thinking. Let me
And-
see if I can remember.
Well, I give you a hint. We just talked about the star of Smorgasbord and Hardly Working, and he's in it.
Oh, King of Comedy.
That's the one.
A very strange film.
Very, very, very strange film.
And Jerry is terrific in that.
Yeah, the rumor has it that was written by a guy named Paul Zimmerman, who was a film critic, the late Paul Zimmerman. And if you read about this film, that Johnny Carson was really who they wanted to play himself.
Yeah.
And the conceit of the film was that a desperate stand-up comic
To get on the Tonight Show.
kidnaps a Johnny Carson-like late-night talk show host because he's desperate to get a shot on a late-night show. And I believe that Johnny Carson was approached and thought it was a bad idea. I don't know if it was about his decision was based on that he didn't want to act or didn't see himself as an actor, or just that he thought, I remember reading that he didn't want to encourage
Yes.
the idea of somebody kidnapping him.
And that film, it's funny, it became part of the culture where you refer to people as a Rupert Pupkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A film that did not do well
No.
at the time.
It's a very frustrating film
It
to
is.
watch.
It is. Yeah. Why do you say that? I mean, I have my own reasons.
There are, I mean, it's like things don't happen the way you want them to happen.
Right. It's a black comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I remember them even like mentioning there are different parts in the movie, even before the ending, which I won't give away, like where somebody's starting to have a meal and doesn't, and other things.
There are continuity errors
Yeah.
in the film. I think he had some personal problems while he was shooting it. I think it was a difficult time for him.
But the funny thing is, Jerry Lewis used to be a replacement host for Johnny Carson.
Right.
So it only makes. Oh, and I heard they called him Jerry Langford because when they're filming out in the street, in case somebody yelled out, "Hey, Jerry!"
Right.
They could keep it in.
And they do. There's
Yeah.
a scene where he's walking in the street, and I don't know if they're just extras. You know, Jerry,
Yeah.
I saw you last night. You look great. He says,
Yeah.
you should see me in my white taffeta. Now, I don't know if that's ad-libbed by real
Yeah.
people on the street, but there's some great stuff in
and
it.
there's also a part that Jerry Lewis mentioned to Scorsese, and then Scorsese put it in the movie, where one time a woman was talking to Lewis and wanted him to talk to her nephew or whatever.
Oh, I know this.
And she goes, "You should die of cancer." And Lewis said that actually happened.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he plays Jerry Langford, which is a kind of a composite of himself and Carson, because he had a late night show of his own.
Oh, yeah.
Of himself and Carson and Merv and all of these guys. And it's a very, very dark look at fame.
Yeah.
And ambition. And De Niro is absolutely creepy.
Oh, yes.
In every imaginable way. And a shout out to Sandra Bernhard too, as his accomplice. She's also wonderful.
De Niro is it's like you're fascinated by him, but fascinated in a character you don't like.
Yeah. Well, it's a film that walks the line because, you know, it's very, very disturbing, but it's also funny.
Yes.
And there were times where you're uneasy for laughing.
And Jerry Lewis is terrific.
Terrific in the picture. And began a friendship, I think a lifelong friendship between him and De Niro. Because they both De Niro and Scorsese showed up at the Jerry roast at the Friars.
I was there.
You and I were both there, yeah.
And
so, did you perform on that one?
Yes.
Yeah. And Tony Randall has a little cameo as basically the replacement host.
Yes, and
because Jerry's tied up.
And Tony Randall is arguing with them about. There's a joke in the monologue about taking the Tonight Show writers to Central Park to be executed.
That's correct.
And that gets the biggest laugh.
Right.
And
then he says, "You're the director. Can you help me with this?" And Scorsese walks by, and he's the director of the talk show, and he has a cameo. So it's very inside. It's a very strange film. It's in many ways a hard film to watch, as you say, a frustrating film.
It is.
But so much good in it.
It's frustrating. There are things you want the direction you want it to go, and it doesn't go there.
I remember, people criticizing it too, as saying that, and you would be able to comment on this as a comic, that they didn't buy his bad comedy.
Yeah.
That there was, because he tells these bad jokes.
Yes.
And it must have been very hard to work that out. Like, how do we make a bad comic?
Yeah.
You know? But he's very good in the film, and it's unlike anything he's ever played.
And Scorsese's mother, of course, pops up
right.
as Rupert Pupkin.
Lower it! I'm trying to do this, Ma! And he's living in this fantasy world with pictures of Liza. He's got Liza Minnelli cardboard cutouts in his basement.
Oh, yes.
And he's doing a mock talk show.
And when Jerry Lewis realizes he's being chased, Jerry Lewis makes a run for it, and it is the most Jerry Lewis run.
Yes. Well, particularly one shot.
Yeah.
Where he does a Jerry Trot run down a street.
It looks like right out of the Errand Boy or the Bellboy.
It's such a weird film.
Yeah.
Because Lewis is really playing straight.
Yeah.
And
great in it.
Yeah. And unsettling himself. He gives another disturbing performance. And there's a scene where he comes home and there's a contrast between the bright lights and the fame, and he comes home and he eats food by himself
yes.
in a lonely, dark apartment. I mean, it's a very black period, I think, for Scorsese.
Oh, yeah.
But a film well worth seeing. And who knew? 2 Tony Randall movies.
Yes.
So King of Comedy?
And The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau and Papillon Susu. If you're out there, or if any of you are relatives or friends of Papillon Susu, have her call. Please.
Would you settle for a Caucasian actor playing Papillon Susu?
My Twitter is at Real Gilbert. So, Papillon Susu, or friends of Papillon Susu, or should we,
Get in touch with us. We'd love to.
Get in touch with us.
We'd love to. I don't know about what, but we'd love to talk to her.
We could talk for 3 minutes going, can you say me so horny?
Sessions.